He was just a routine maintenance engineer, until a police dog blocked his path and refused to let him near the plane. Security thought it was a false alarm, but what they found hidden inside the cockpit made the entire terminal go silent. Here comes the full story, but real quick, drop your dog's name in the comments. And if you love these jaw-dropping canine moments, make sure you're subscribed. The chill in the air was biting even for a New York morning. Inside JFK's Terminal 7, Officer Rachel Grant zipped her jacket up to her chin as she passed through the security gate, her breath fogging the glass. The terminal buzzed with its usual symphony, rolling suitcases, murmured conversations, and distant flight announcements. But Rachel wasn't listening to any of it. Beside her, walking with effortless grace, was Valor, her canine partner for the past 2.5 years. A muscular Belgian Malinois with a chestnut coat and black-tipped ears, Valor moved with purpose, his nose twitching and his eyes scanning everything with silent focus. The two had worked countless shifts together, but Valor had a gift, an intuition so sharp it made even seasoned handlers pause. Their morning sweep had begun like any other. Routine sniff checks at baggage claims, food carts, and boarding areas. The kind of work that made Valor a ghost in the crowd, present but unseen, always watching. Rachel tapped her earpiece. Unit 14 reporting. Nothing suspicious near Gate 41. Proceeding to sweep Jetway Access 3 and adjacent tarmac. Control acknowledged. By the time they rounded the bend past the international check-in counters, Rachel felt Valor's gait change. Subtle, intentional. His usual fluid pace turned rigid. Every muscle in his frame tightened like coiled wire. She slowed. Then he stopped. She followed his line of sight. Across the jet bridge near Gate 49, a man in a reflective vest and jumpsuit stood beside a grounded Boeing 747. He was tall, thin, with an engineer's ID badge clipped to his belt and a tool pouch slung over one shoulder. On the surface, he looked like any other maintenance tech prepping a long-haul aircraft. But Valor lowered his head, teeth bared just enough to be seen, and emitted a low growl that reverberated in Rachel's chest. Rachel tightened her grip on the leash. "Valor," she whispered. The dog didn't blink. He stepped forward. Once, twice, then pulled. Across the tarmac, the man seemed to notice. His hands subtly shifted toward the pouch. A perfectly normal movement except for the sharp flick of his eyes toward the terminal exit. Rachel followed Valor forward, her heart beginning to race. She cut across the line of sight and signaled to nearby ground crew to pause. "Sir," she called, "can I speak with you for a moment?" The man froze. A delay like that didn't belong to someone with nothing to hide. Rachel closed the gap, keeping Valor tight to her side. "Your name?" she asked. "Logan Barrett," he replied, voice tight. "Maintenance engineering. I'm cleared for Flight 298. It's set for systems diagnostics before boarding." She nodded slowly, pretending to check her scanner. But Valor didn't need permission. His body was already between Rachel and the man, tail stiff, posture alert, eyes locked on the tool pouch. "Mind if I have my partner check your kit real quick?" Rachel asked. Barrett didn't move. "Everything in there's cleared. I've been doing this for 10 years. Valor growled again, lower this time, more urgent. Rachel didn't blink. "Then you've got nothing to worry about." She motioned toward the pouch. Barrett hesitated, just enough for Valor to lunge forward with a sharp bark that made everyone nearby freeze. The leash went taut. Rachel fought to keep him from lunging outright. "Hey, control your dog," Barrett barked, stepping back. Rachel didn't let up. "Sir, I need you to step away from the aircraft immediately." Something in Barrett's face flickered. Then he ran. It was instinct, a half-second decision that flipped everything on its head. Rachel dropped the scanner and gave chase. Valor tore forward, perfectly in sync with her sprint. Ground crew scattered as the three figures cut across the tarmac. Boots pounding, a tool pouch bouncing, and a dog with nothing but pure drive in his eyes. Barrett didn't make it far. He tried to angle toward a storage tunnel, but Valor leapt, teeth bared, bringing him down just short of the chain-link gate. Rachel was on him in seconds, her cuffs snapping into place before Barrett could catch his breath. "Get off me," he gasped. "This is insane. I didn't do anything." Rachel didn't reply. She stared at the tool pouch that had fallen open beside him. Inside wasn't just a wrench set or diagnostic scanner. It was a thin plastic shell about the size of a small book, wrapped in heat-resistant fabric. There were no serial numbers, no logos, just clean, functional construction like it had been built to disappear. She leaned over. "Control, this is Unit 14. We need bomb disposal to Gate 49. Possible concealed device found inside technician pouch. Subject in custody." There was a beat of silence. Then, "Acknowledged. EOD en route." Rachel knelt beside Valor, still panting from the sprint. She placed a hand on his shoulder, feeling the steady tremble of adrenaline still humming beneath his coat. "You good?" she whispered. Valor pressed against her, still staring at the device. 15 minutes later, the emergency ordnance team had the shell secured inside a reinforced container. They didn't open it yet. Protocol forbade it until they were inside the blast chamber facility. Rachel stood with Commander Ellis, watching as Barrett sat in a detention van, expression locked between panic and fury. "His ID's clean," Ellis said. "Registered engineer. Background checks out." "It's not," Rachel replied, eyes still on the device. "Valor's never wrong." A pause. "You think he's a plant?" Rachel didn't answer directly. "I think someone wanted that device inside the cockpit, and I think we were never supposed to notice." Ellis exhaled. "We've grounded the flight. You'll get full clearance. This isn't small." Rachel nodded, but the weight in her chest hadn't lifted. She knew too well how close these moments came to disaster. They were just beginning to peel back the first layer. 3 hours later, Rachel sat in a dimly lit interrogation room across from Barrett. His real name wasn't Logan Barrett. His fingerprints matched a different alias, one used 3 months ago to apply for airport clearance in Denver. The facial recognition system had missed the match. In his bag, they'd found a secondary badge chip coded to JFK's maintenance override system. But the real shock came from the device analysis. It wasn't a bomb, not exactly. It was a network access implant designed to embed itself into an aircraft's flight management system via the cockpit control panel. A remote injection tool likely intended to alter flight routing without immediate detection. Not a loud weapon, a silent one. Someone wanted control of the aircraft once it was airborne, and Barrett had almost installed it until a police dog blocked his path. Rachel stared at the man across the table. "You've been trained to be invisible," she said quietly. "Everything in your profile was calculated, but you didn't expect the dog, did you?" Barrett didn't flinch. "I don't talk without legal representation." Rachel stood slowly. She didn't need his confession. Not anymore. That night, after 11 hours on shift, Rachel stood in the Canine unit kennel, watching Valor curl up in his crate. His ears twitched, but he didn't move. He was spent. So was she. She remembered her first week with him. He'd failed twice out of basic training. Trainers said he was too slow to respond, too cautious, but she'd requested him anyway. "Maybe he just thinks more than others," she'd told the assignment officer. Turned out she was right. Valor didn't leap at every signal. He processed, checked, confirmed, and when he acted, he never wavered. Rachel crouched beside the crate, resting her hand on the side. "You stopped something big today," she said softly. Valor blinked once, then closed his eyes. The air in the operations briefing room felt heavier than usual. Agent Maya Ellison from Homeland Security flipped through the pages of a file while a digital scan of the device taken from Logan Barrett rotated slowly on the wall-mounted screen. The image showed the exposed internals of the implant, flat circuitry, low-frequency transmitters, a timing capacitor, no explosive components, no timer, no warning, just quiet control. Rachel stood off to the side with Valor sitting alert at her feet, his head tilted slightly as if even he was trying to understand what came next. "This isn't a one-off," Ellison said, breaking the silence. "It's too advanced, too rehearsed. We've seen crude USB drops before, tampering, maybe hijack attempts, but this is embedded infiltration." She clicked the remote, switching the screen to an airfield blueprint from Dallas-Fort Worth International Airport. This same week, a technician using the ID Connor Lyle accessed the cockpit of a Boeing 787 during routine pre-boarding checks. Nothing flagged it, until 3 hours later when the aircraft's internal diagnostic logs showed a 12-second power fluctuation. That's the exact window this device would need to sync and inject code. Was the aircraft grounded? Rachel asked. No, it flew. Ellison's eyes swept the room. That plane completed its journey, Dallas to Tokyo, with 347 passengers. Nobody spoke. Then Ellison clicked to a third slide. Seattle-Tacoma, Frankfurt, Dubai, all within a 10-day window. All involving planes that either reported mid-air system anomalies or minor control interface malfunctions, each explained away by turbulence, dust contamination, or minor updates. Except now, those explanations didn't seem so innocent. We're not looking at bombs anymore, Agent Ellison said, turning to the map. We're looking at a distributed hijacking system, quiet, digital, and repeatable. She turned to Rachel. And your dog just gave us our first confirmed intercept. Rachel nodded, but her expression remained unreadable. She looked down at Valor, who was now sitting upright beside her chair, watching Ellison as if he understood. It was nearing midnight when the alert came through. Rachel and Valor had just gotten into her patrol SUV when a coded ping hit the terminal. A TSA badge check at Newark Liberty International Airport had triggered a passive flag. The name Eric Vaughn. Nothing suspicious in the database, but when cross-referenced with alias data from the Logan Barrett case, facial structure analysis showed a 93% match to a man flagged 2 years earlier in a failed sabotage attempt in Warsaw, a man believed dead in a ferry fire off the coast of Marseille. He was not dead, and he had just checked into an international maintenance shift at Gate B-17. The tarmac at Newark shimmered under floodlights. It was quiet, just after the last round of flights for the day. Only maintenance teams and late-night patrols moved like shadows between steel. Rachel moved quickly, radio silent. Valor trotted beside her, his breath steady. In front of them was a stationary cargo-modified 767, scheduled to fly medical supplies to Geneva. The gate's security badge logs showed Vaughn had entered just minutes ago. 2 local officers flanked her. One covered the gate. The other followed toward the plane. As they approached, Valor's body tensed. A half-step pause, then a sharp turn left. He pulled away from the cargo access toward the nose of the plane. The cockpit, Rachel whispered. She motioned to the trailing officer to hold position as she followed Valor up the narrow aluminum steps. The cabin door creaked open. It was dark. Power was partially off. The glow from a utility light faintly illuminated the cockpit. And there he was. Eric Vaughn kneeling by the flight control panel, a thin fiber cable in his hand, and a square object in the other. The same shape, the same build. He froze when he saw the silhouette of Valor in the doorway. Then he moved, not toward the gun clipped to his belt, but toward the small implant. He tried to shove it into the console. Rachel didn't need to shout. Valor launched before her voice caught up. A flash of fur, a crash of metal, and Vaughn was on the floor, pinned beneath 70 pounds of fury, the implant skidding harmlessly to the corner. Rachel pressed the cuffs on his wrist just as reinforcements flooded the space. She exhaled, one breath at a time. By the time Homeland Security took over the scene, the device had been collected and the aircraft sealed. Eric Vaughn refused to speak, but he didn't have to. The component had been identical to the one found at JFK, and this time it had been seconds from being operational. As analysts dug into Vaughn's belongings, a notebook surfaced. Handwritten logs, diagrams, timetables. One entry stood out. NYC Device 3 scheduled for install 6 hours. Handler Barrett on site. Below that, Device 4 assigned to EV Flight Geneva route. Window approx 2 to 2:15. There were more. A full schedule, planned installations over the next 10 days, 7 more flights, 4 countries, 3 engineers still unidentified. And at the bottom, Central Relay, inactive until trigger sync complete. See, Ops Terminal Bravo. Rachel pointed to the note. Ops Terminal Bravo, is that here? Agent Ellison frowned. No, that's a restricted access terminal at Philadelphia International. They store decommissioned flight control systems for FAA calibration. You think it's the control node? Rachel asked. Ellison nodded slowly. It fits. Every device feeds to a central relay. If that hub activates, these planes don't need bombs. They'll follow commands we'll never see coming. 3 hours later, the task force convened in a high-clearance hangar at JFK. There was no denying it anymore. This was not a collection of isolated threats. This was an orchestrated operation, testing the integrity of global flight command systems. But something still didn't add up. Why now? Why these flights? Why the precision? Rachel paced beside Valor, piecing through everything. The devices, the silent installations, the coordinated timing, and then it clicked. She turned back to Ellison. What if this wasn't about full hijacks? Ellison raised a brow. What if it's about syncing test cases, proving a model, recording how far these planes can be influenced before detection? Ellison froze. Rachel continued. Not to destroy them yet, to prove it could be done, to build trust inside the group behind it. Proof of concept, Ellison said slowly. Rachel nodded. Which means the real operation is still coming. The room fell silent again. Everyone knew what that meant. A system could be restored, a plane could be grounded, but if the central relay activated at full scale, entire fleets could be at risk. Rachel looked at Valor, now resting on his haunches but still alert. He'd tracked down 2 operatives. He'd sensed deception where machines had failed. And now he might be the only one who could help them find the relay device before it activated. The highway between New York and Philadelphia stretched out like a gray ribbon under an overcast sky. Rain tapped the windshield in soft rhythms as Rachel stared straight ahead, both hands gripping the wheel. The passenger seat held Valor, his eyes half closed but his body upright, his ears flicking to every sound. In the back seat, Agent Maya Ellison pored over the flight operations diagrams and blueprints. The clock was ticking. Somewhere inside Philadelphia International Airport's Terminal Bravo, a hidden relay node was either being built or already operational. The Philadelphia unit had sealed off the facility. TSA and FBI agents were combing the premises, but the building was massive, old, under renovation, and cluttered with discarded tech from the FAA's calibration archive. You think he'll be able to find it in time? Ellison asked, glancing at Valor. Rachel didn't turn her head. If it's there, he'll find it. He always does. The air inside Terminal Bravo was stale, carrying a mix of concrete dust, old jet fuel, and forgotten machinery. The place had once been the heart of air traffic testing protocols. Now it stood partially gutted, maintenance tunnels and long-forgotten hallways running beneath hangars. The tactical team formed 3 separate entry lines, sweeping ground level. Rachel unclipped Valor's leash at the door. Free search, she whispered. The dog hesitated just a second, then took off into the shadows. She followed closely behind, flashlights slicing through the dark, down one corridor, then another, through a collapsed hallway littered with sheet metal. Valor moved like smoke, sniffing door frames, pausing, redirecting. Rachel's ears filled with a low hum of pressure and urgency. No gunfire, no alarms, just a sickening silence. Then Valor stopped. He stiffened, sniffed once, then barked. Short, sharp, final. Rachel froze. He was standing outside a steel-reinforced security room labeled FAA Core System Storage. No one had been assigned to sweep that section yet. She keyed her radio. Unit 14. Possible target. Core storage, Valor's locking. Inside the room, metal shelves stood like ancient tombstones, each one marked with labels that read, Intactive, Declassified, or Test Only. But amid the dusty cables and rusted monitors, Valor focused on a particular cabinet, an ordinary-looking steel locker bolted to the floor. His body trembled, not with fear, but with the telltale rigidity of pure certainty. Rachel gave the signal. The cabinet was opened carefully by the bomb squad. What they found silenced the room. Inside sat a black carbon composite box about the size of a carry-on suitcase, fitted with a blinking LED panel. The blinking wasn't steady. It was syncing. Agent Ellison leaned in. Motion-triggered relay node. Probably woke up when we stepped in. The technician's voice trembled slightly as he analyzed the scan. It's pulling signal confirmation, cross-referencing flight schedules. Probably set to activate once 3 nodes report active and airborne. We're looking at a coordinated activation. Rachel's breath caught. This device wasn't just a receiver. It was the execution switch. The technician began his work, carefully disabling its outer shell, tracing circuits, isolating fail-safes. But the relay module had a radio-linked auto-arm feature, one that could be triggered remotely if tampering was detected. The team had 20 minutes before the circuit finalized the handshake with any active aircraft. Rachel stood back, Valor beside her. Every second felt like an eternity. Ellison whispered, "This isn't just a smart device. It was meant to prove a concept, remember? They planned this like a corporate demo. Only the clients are global terror networks." Rachel nodded, staring at the screen. Someone was always going to be watching from afar. This was a pitch. A low beep snapped their attention to a console near the wall. It lit up. Then another one blinked to life, connected via hidden cable to the back of the relay device. They'd missed a secondary signal repeater disguised inside an old FAA monitor. It was broadcasting. "This thing's not only triggering planes," the technician said, voice shaking. "It's transmitting surveillance data, live." Ellison turned white. Someone out there is watching this moment, right now. In the chaos that followed, Valor did something no one expected. He turned away from the relay box, his head shot up, ears back, a sharp growl. Then he ran, through the open door, across the maintenance floor. Rachel followed without hesitation. They wound through half-collapsed hallways until he stopped at a maintenance breaker panel near the auxiliary generator room. He barked again. This time, when the panel was opened, another hidden locker was revealed, welded into the wall, low-frequency shielded. Inside was a backup transmitter, already humming with weak RF pulses. Ellison caught up, breathless. "A second trigger," she said, "fail-safe in case the main node is compromised." Rachel looked down at Valor. "You knew." She knelt. "This whole thing, every path we took, it all led here, didn't it?" The dog didn't move. His tail slowly wagged. Rachel called it in. The second node was disabled. The broadcast jammed, and the handshake between the infected aircraft and the relay system collapsed before final execution. They had made it, by minutes. Over the next 48 hours, arrests were made in 3 countries. Interpol stormed a safe house in Istanbul where the operation had originated. The group behind the attack, a shadow faction attempting to sell cyber-sabotage techniques to state buyers, had been monitoring every airport Valor had worked in. They hadn't counted on a dog who learned not through force but through patience, who didn't jump to alert but waited for certainty. They didn't anticipate a handler who would trust a pause more than a bark. A week later, Rachel stood in front of a quiet podium inside a secure hangar. Media were not invited, but inside, rows of officers, agents, and tech specialists filled the space. Valor sat beside her, wearing his polished harness. His chestnut fur had been brushed until it glistened. His eyes never left her. As the Director of Homeland Security spoke, Rachel barely heard the words. She just kept looking at her partner. The four-legged soul who had stopped 3 planes from being turned into weapons, who had run through metal, dust, and silence, trusting instinct where machines failed. Later that night, long after the crowd had dispersed, Rachel sat in the corner of the Canine kennel beside Valor's resting space. She scratched his ears, watching him breathe. She thought about the early days, how no one wanted him, how his hesitation was seen as failure, how her gut said otherwise. And now here they were. 2 weeks later, life returned to its normal rhythm at JFK. Travelers lined up at check-ins, families hugged in arrivals, and flight boards clicked with their usual rhythm. In the distance, Rachel and Valor patrolled the far side of Terminal 5. Most people didn't notice them. They were just shadows in motion, officer and dog, human and guardian. But somewhere above, flying quietly over the Atlantic, hundreds of lives remained safe. Because one dog refused to let a man step into a cockpit, And what he found inside sent the world racing, not from fear, but from hope. If you like these kind of stories, wait till you see what we've got coming next. Real heroes with forepaws and instincts sharper than any machine. Hit that subscribe button and turn on the bell. You do not want to miss the next one.